Welcome back, everybody. This is Hutch from Hutch Builds, and today I thought I'd do a little something different. There's been a lot of compilation videos on the channel so far. Today I'm doing a coolant flush on my 78 Calais. So not sure if everybody knows how to do that, or if they've done it before, or maybe you do it different. I don't know. This is how I do it, so figured I'd just show you guys. So I am also going to pull off the thermostat housing, and I'm replacing the thermostat. This vehicle from the factory came with a 195, and I'm putting a 180 in it. I just, for V8 cars, usually that's exactly what I do, is I go down just a little bit on the temperature range. Now, if you're doing this and it's a later model car, it's got, I don't know, either throttle body injection or some type of fuel injection, a lot of times the coolant temp has to be in a certain range for different things to react to that, as far as like sensor readings and things like that. So if you've got a more modern car, this is a 78 like I said, if you got a more modern car, maybe you just stick with the factory design, and whatever thermostat came in that car is probably what you should put back, unless you've done your research and you know what you can get away with. But there's no computer here, there's nothing. It's just distributor and spark plugs and carburetor, and easy. Yeah, so I'm gonna do the thermostat, and then we're gonna go ahead and do an entire coolant flush on it and clean everything out and start fresh. Oh, and you're gonna, let's see, for tools, pretty simple for this car anyway. Pair of pliers, 5/16 nut driver, and a 1/2-inch socket on a ratchet, and of course 4 gallons of premix. You can get straight antifreeze, and then just go buy 2 gallons of distilled water. If you do an entire flush, it's probably going to take close to, it's like 3.5, 4 gallons to do the entire flush. On this system anyway. So yeah, you could go and get 2 gallons of antifreeze and then 2 gallons of distilled water, and just pour 1 gallon in of the antifreeze, pour 1 gallon of distilled water, and then take one of those empty jugs and mix it half and half with distilled and antifreeze, and then just keep topping it off until you're done. But what you're going to save, probably in the range of 20 bucks if you do it that way, versus just what I did. I just bought 50/50 premix, and now I can just pour it in, don't have to worry about mixing anything or counting or using my fingers. I don't like that stuff. So anyway, you do you. It's completely fine, whatever way you want to do it. Or you could take it to a shop and have them flush it, because they have very specific machinery. They actually have, pretty sure they still use them. I've been out of the business for a while, but they have a system. They actually filtrate your coolant that's in there and put your same coolant back in. Probably have to add some to it, but it goes through a multi-filter system and actually cleans all the stuff out of the antifreeze, and they put it back in and replaces the glycol levels to what they're supposed to be, all that good stuff. But in my area, mechanic work, the labor rate is like 250 bucks an hour. So it's at least an hour job. And if you replace a thermostat, you're going to add another half hour onto that. And so you're going to pay like $300 something. I pay 58 bucks. So anyway, let's get started. All right, so this guy down here mounted at the bottom of the radiator, this is called the petcock. And that's what the pliers are for, is just to basically get this thing, oh, that's not that tight. All right, get this thing loose, and we'll start draining out the old antifreeze. Luckily, I got a place right down the road from me that it's like a a dump slash recycler, and they have giant tanks on the side that they take used oil and used antifreeze. So got drums over there just to handle this. It's a perfect place to take that stuff. And for whatever reason, I cannot find, I had a bigger container than this for catching the fluid, but this thing fills up. I got a bucket here that I can put it in. Now that it's draining, I can go ahead and take my radiator cap off. Oh, that looks a little bit nasty in there. Yeah, it's really nasty. Well, I hope this flushes okay. We'll see what happens. This is the joys of having an old car. This is new to me, but it's still an old car, so you never know what kind of maintenance was taking place before you got it. So, yeah. So we gotta let this run for a little while until this thing is completely drained out. And hopefully the level will get below this thermostat housing, and that way I can take that off and not make a mess. Well, we'll see. Gotta let it drain. All right, so on the Oldsmobile, if you're dealing with the Chevy, it's going to be different. Well, everything's going to be different, honestly. But on the Oldsmobile, there's a bypass tube that goes in the front here down to the top of the water pump. And there's a section of hose in between, which looks like it's in really good shape. So I'm not interested in replacing any hoses. I have some. And if you're going to do something like this, it's a good time to check out all the hoses to make sure there's not any issues. I don't see any. Now eventually this car is getting an Olds 350, so I will be replacing the hoses when that happens, but not now. Anyway, let's get that down. I'm going to use a flat blade and just see if I can't go around here and loosen up the hose just where the clamp was, because it's probably going to be somewhat fused to this pipe. So I'm going to try to take this thing up and not have this fight me too much. And I also don't want to pierce the hose. Like I said, I've got some in the house or in the garage, but this hose looks in decent shape, so I'm not going to replace it unless I have to. Okay. I'm going to hope that let's turn this up just a little bit here. I'm going to hope that that's going to hold. There's 2 1/2-inch bolts in here that need to come out. This is about the point in the project. Let me raise this up a little bit. Now, I was going to say, this is usually the point in the project where something goes wrong, bolt snaps in half, and it turns an easy thermostat housing into a nightmare. And there's still a little bit of coolant. I see some seeping out there. Okay. There's the first bolt. We'll clean those up once they're out. Oh, thank you. Everything seems to be going okay. And a lot of times with these old cars, if I can get onto it with a ratchet or with a open or close in box wrench, I will try that first. Sometimes you hit the thing with the impact and you're just asking for trouble. Snap a bolt, strip a thread. It's just not worth it. There we go. All right. So that's both of those loose. Now, hopefully this comes off okay. Oh. I don't even want to take that hose off. I don't have to. Will this thing pop out? Oh, look at this. It's moving. Ha! Yay! Wow, that never happens. Okay, I'm going to sit that off to the side. And first we're going to deal with this guy. There. It's the old thermostat housing. And now clean up the intake here. Try not to slice through any of those vacuum lines back there. And this is also something you have to be very careful of too. Yeah, you could get out your angle grinder with a red or a brown Scotch-Brite on it. Probably clean this thing up in seconds. But if you accidentally carve a groove in either this or the housing, then it may never seal again. Oh, I gotta be careful. So the last thing I want to do is cut through one of those hoses. So yeah, if it takes a little more time, I'm willing to do that, because the alternative is I go fast and then it never seals. Or I have an issue larger than what I thought I was going to deal with that I got to fix now, and I don't think that's necessary. And this seems to be coming off really nice. So that's good. The cleaner you can get this, the easier the gasket will lay down on it, and the better it will seal. You have to be careful to make sure you keep your razor blade nice and flat and straight, because you can cock the razor blade, and if it's aluminum, you can gouge that just as easy as putting a notch in it with a grinder. But this does seem to be working. Every once in a while you run across one of these, especially if you're in the profession. Someone did it at home and they used like that brown aircraft sealant, or they use something and it's like hard as a rock, and then you're hating life while you're in here trying to make sure that all that stuff gets scraped off. How does that feel? That's pretty good. Looks like, is that something around there? They put some type of sealant down in there. I can't tell. Maybe it's just a buildup of crud. But I want to make sure the spot where the thermostat is going to sit in, this recess right here, I want to make sure that's flat too, so it doesn't stick up proud and interfere with your housing. No, it's not good either. So I'm kind of just scraping in the opposite direction of the blade. That seems to be getting that out. Nice. Okay, that is one side done. Let's put a towel over that. Very nice. Okay, depending on your model, this one, it happens to be the case. These, let me see if I can pull this up so you can see. So these two holes where the housing is attached, that's where the bolts go through, those are open. So they go all the way into the area where the coolant passage is. So you have to use some type of either liquid Teflon or Teflon tape to put on those, or you could have antifreeze kind of creep up through the bolt and come out underneath the head. So you just want to make sure that is also sealed up. Yeah, but that looks good. Let's get on to the housing. So the gasket, almost all of it, stayed with the housing. So I'm going to see if we can't get this up. Sometimes you get lucky and this thing will come out in mostly one piece if you treat it nice. So I'm going to try to treat it nice. There it is. That's most of it. All right, now we can get in there and do a nice scrub here. Get all that residual stuff off. Always careful of the fingers. I like my blood on the inside. Luckily, I guess for this service anyway, these parts, everything is there's no aluminum, so it's either cast steel or cast iron, so it's less likely to gouge from the razor blade, which is always good. Yeah, well, it's discolored, but it is smooth. Okay, let's get a little something on there to really clean it well. All right, little brake clean here. Make sure there's no remnants of antifreeze, oil, or any other debris. All right, sit that right there. Stay. All right. And then we'll flip around and we'll do the same thing down here. All right, what are we looking like? Okay, now just make sure I can run my finger along here. I don't feel any anomalies, any rough spots like there's a little hunk of gasket or something somewhere. Same thing here. Yeah, nice and smooth. Nice, flat, smooth surface. Smooth as it's going to get. All right. So now we do the gasket. So the gasket that I have is one side is actually sticky. So I guess you can stick it down to the housing so it doesn't move when you're trying to bolt it down. But usually for these, I like to, especially if there's no stick on them, I like to spray these down with some high tack, which is what I have here, Permatex high tack. I love this stuff. So on the non-sticky side, I'm actually going to spray a little bit of that high tack on there just to make sure that we got a little sticky seal on both sides of this gasket. There, just enough to give it a little bit of tack on both sides, help it do its job. Okay, gasket goes in. Make sure my bolt, oh, what am I doing? What are you doing? Thermostat, yeah. So here's the thing. If for some reason there is something in here preventing this from going in flat, you want to address that, because especially if it's like aluminum thermostat housing, if this thing is, you accidentally put it in and the one side is up and you try to tighten it down, a lot of times what will happen is you can't tighten it because you've got this side of the thermostat or something in here. You try to tighten it down and you snap one of the ears right off of the housing. And then your day just goes bad. So don't do that. Okay, now gasket goes on. Get these bolt holes lined up where I like them. That looks right. All right, and now let's clean this other side of the housing off. Just getting this side where it goes back to the hose. Let's make sure that's clean. This back down in place. Get the hose started and just start feeding this down. Now, before it's all the way down, we'll get our bolts started back in here. And then from that point, we can start tightening this back down. So again, I put a little Teflon tape on the ends of the bolts here, just where it threads into that intake manifold, so I can make sure that this thing doesn't seep. Although the ones that were, when I pulled them out, they had nothing on them. Those things were bare. Let's see if I can get the thread started on this. All right, get these snug back down. I do a little bit on each side until this thing's all the way back down. All right. That looks good. So now we bring our clamp back up. Cinch this beauty down. And then all we got to do is the flush. And hope that I did this right. It's always good if you do the repair correctly. Yay! How's that bottom one doing? Is it tight? I don't know. Just a little bit more snug in there. All right, now onto the flush. So now we go to the other end of the upper radiator hose, loosen this up, and then work that upper hose off. And hopefully this doesn't fight me. A lot of times if you can give it a good enough twist and just enough to pop the seal on it. All right. doesn't want to work. Let's see if I can't. This is always dangerous. All right, maybe a little bit this way. Maybe that's enough. Yeah. Okay. Now you've got the upper hose off. You want to place this somewhere where you can watch it as the engine starts to warm up. So usually I just tuck it right in below where the inlet is so I can watch what's coming out of it. That might be good. Okay, on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is we take our garden hose, and we put it into the upper fitting on there. So now what is happening is the petcock underneath can't keep up with the garden hose. So you'll have an overflow coming out of here at the top, plus you've got overflow over there. So now what's happening is all this water is flowing through the radiator, through all those passages. Make sure that everything that is in there, if there's any gunk, goo, whatever it is, all that stuff gets flushed out. So now that the radiator is full, what we're going to do is we're going to start the car, and we're just going to let the car run because there's still old coolant that's in the block, and the thermostat housing on the top would keep that from coming out. So there's still some stuff down in there. Who knows what kind of junk is in there. So we want to try to get that out if we can. So now we'll start the car and we'll let it run and wait for that thermostat to open up and then start seeing whatever flows out of the top hose. I always like to have it all the way on hot. So now we just sit back and wait, let the engine run, get up the temp, and that thermostat is going to open up. And then once we see flowing out of here, we know we're flushing stuff out of the block. So, like I was saying earlier, I'm putting a 180 in this, and the factory recommendation was 195. So, you know, I always like to run a little bit on the cooler side, especially with V8s. And there's no computer. Like I said, there's nothing to worry about with this. It's just, I'm gonna run it just a tad bit on the cooler side. It's only like 15 degrees, but it always makes me feel better. So that's what I do. Now, you will see some guys that will like try to run no thermostat, thinking they're going to keep the engine cooler, and it actually has the opposite effect. So the coolant, if that thermostat isn't there and there's nothing to stop it, what happens is the water continuously flows through the block and back in the radiator and gets cooled, and it never has a chance to pull any real heat out of the engine. So the thermostat is there to make sure that it pulls up to 180 degrees out of the cast iron of the block and around those cylinders and everything else before it opens up. And then it releases all that hot water back into the radiator until there's enough coolant that's going back in, lower temperature coolant, because it's been cooled by the radiator. Once that starts to flow back in and come out the top side, the thermostat will close back up, and it'll hold that until you hit that 180 again. So it gives a chance for the coolant to sit in the engine and actually do its job of pulling heat. So, I don't know. For guys who want to run no thermostat, you're just going to overheat the car eventually. If you're drag racing or something, fine. But if you're daily driving this, or you're going to be on the highway or anything, you're just going to overheat the car prematurely. There we go. Let me get my cat's can under here. Try to catch as much of that as I can. Yeah, so now we got the thermostat opened up on it. We're just going to let this run until there is nothing but clear water coming out of that. And actually, we may just got a little bypass there. I'm wondering if the pump, because we drained it, if the pump just got the fluid back up inside the block and we're just getting some residual out. It's still pouring. Yeah, there we go. I had the engine running earlier, so it was kind of, the block was kind of already warm, so the stuff in the engine was actually pretty hot. So we're just going to let that go as many cycles as it needs to do until we get no more antifreeze coming out of there and we just have nice clean water. So the temp gauge is just about, probably like a little past that mark, a little closer to 220 is about where this thing runs at operational temperature. So it's almost up to full temp. And ooh, the heat down here, yeah, it's blowing nice and hot out of there. So yeah, we're doing what we're supposed to. Best of all, no leaks out of that thermostat housing, which that's good. So you're never going to get 100%, so don't aim for perfection. But I think what we got here is actually pretty good. Whew. Hot, hot. Yeah, I'll let it run for just a little bit longer, do a couple more cycles of the thermostat, but we pretty much got the bulk of everything that was in the block at this point. So we're just about ready to button everything back up and start adding coolant. Okay, so the hose is out and off and got everything rinsed down, and now we basically sit and wait for the petcot to do its job and to drain all the water that is left over in the radiator out. And then we do the same process, except now we close our petcock, fill it full of our antifreeze, and then we'll do the same procedure, run the engine, and then when the engine starts to run and the thermostat opens up, you'll see clear coming out of here. And then once this starts turning to green and we know that we're pumping antifreeze through the block, then we cut it back off, put our hose back on, and then we just let it run, fill it up as necessary, and you just sit and wait. You have to run it for a while, and then once it's good and hot, you know the thermostat's open a bunch of times and you've gotten possibly any air that's trapped in the system out and into the radiator, then the level over here may drop a couple of times. Try not to fill it all the way up, because at some point it'll overflow on you. So you want to be able to see it, but don't get it close to the top until you're really confident that the system is kind of bled of any air that could have been in there, and all that is done. When that is done, you turn it off, you fill that up, and then we'll do our overflow, and then basically seal the system up. You want to let it sit, because as it sits and the radiator fluid cools down, it'll move around a little bit. So over the next like couple of days, you just keep checking it. And anytime you got an issue where if it's low, you take it off, you top it off, put the cap back on, make sure that your overflow stays at full when cold. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So now, like I said, we just wait. for the water to drain. So the petcock is closed, and I've got about 1.5 gallons, maybe less, in the radiator right now of antifreeze. So start it back up, and then I'll just periodically check this and kind of keep it close to the top, not too much, because like as this thing starts to cycle, you could get some push out, and you don't need it all over the ground. Yeah, and we're kind of close to just under operating temp, so that's good. We just gotta let this thing run. That's what we want to see. Yeah, that's good. Now just tighten that clamp down. All right, so now it's just a matter of making sure that every little bit of air is out of the block and anything in it and back into the radiator, and eventually we can get this thing filled up most of the way. Woo. Woo. So you also have to make sure that, especially on these older cars, when you turn it to AC, there's a valve that will cut off hot water going into your heater core. So you want to make sure that you get the stuff in the heater core too. So you have to make sure that you have it on heat, you have it all the way over on hot, right? So you want that coolant to be circulating through your heater core. You want to get all of it. You want to get all the old coolant, as much as you can, circulating and out, so you can put new in. And the same thing, when you've got it running, make sure you've got the heat. You don't have to necessarily have it on, but you have to have it set to heat, and you have to have it all the way on full hot. You can turn the fan off if you want, but you just got to make sure that the flow is there, so you get all that junk out, so you clean everything. So right now, it's sitting just below the top off point. So at the dealership, once we hit this point and the car was like really up to temp and everything looked good, we would have somebody get in the car and we would have them put the throttle down a little bit, bring the RPM up. Because like on this car, it's not an electric water pump, it's driven by the belts. So when you increase the RPM, pulley goes faster, more flow, and it'll actually pull down the level on the radiator. So while someone was sitting inside with the RPM up, we would top it all the way to the top, put the cap back on, and then we would tell them, okay, you can let off it now. And now you've got as close to a full system as possible. Because, I don't know, when you're working on someone's car, you want to make sure, because you can't guarantee that they're going to do all the steps to make sure that it stays full. They're trusting you to do all the work. So I don't necessarily have to do that, and I'm not going to call my wife or anybody else out here to do that step. I've got this thing up to temp. It's nice and hot. I'm just going to cut it off, top that thing all the way to the top, fill up my overflow to where it needs to be, and then I'm just going to let it sit for the night. It'll do its thing, and then over the next couple of days, I'm just going to, every time in the morning when I come out, I'm going to take the radiator cap off. If it's down at all, I'm going to top it just enough to get it back to the top, put it back on, make sure my overflow level is staying correct. For cold, there's a level for hot and a level for cold. Just make sure it's at that cold level. Make sure nothing drops off, and I don't see any leaks. So I think we're good. This is how I flush the coolant system. Now, this is an older car, Works for me, might not work for you. Your mileage may be different. Newer cars are more interesting, but it's basically the same principle. You're just trying to flush all that old stuff out. Or you can go to the dealership and pay 250 bucks. You can see that now that it's off, it's starting to want to flow back out. So I don't even need to top this off. I'm just going to get my cap back on. And any residual is going to push its way back into the overflow. And then now all I got to do is get my overflow filled. So here's also something worth pointing out. On the overflow, if you look inside, if it's got like a bunch of brown, scaly, crusty stuff on the side, what you can do is actually unbolt this, remove it from the car. This is what we used to do. You put, I don't know, put like Simple Green or that the purple stuff, whatever, some type of soap in there, and we would use Stay Dry, which is just, it's like kitty litter. Now, it's got to be non-clumping kitty litter. It's just got to be regular stuff. But it's basically, it's just an aggregate. It's something to, like, when you swish it around. So we'd put like a little bit, we'd plug off the hose down there, put a little bit of soap in it, put a little bit of the Stay Dry in there, put the lid back on, and with it out of the car, you just shake this thing up, and the Stay Dry or kitty litter would act like an aggregate, and it would scrub the sides. And you could get a lot of that scale out because it's just kind of loose in there. It's not real clingy. And the soap just helps clean everything out. And then when you're done, you just wash this thing all the way out, make sure it's nice and clean. You got all the debris out and everything is done. Put it back in the car, and it's usually almost spotless on the inside. So that's something to think about if you have that issue. Something you can do to fix that, other than just trying to stick a nozzle of a hose in there and try to get that to work. All right. This is probably going to be, it's probably going to need to be filled some more, but I don't know if you can see the line. It's right about there. So I am at the full cold, and I think I'm going to fill it just a little bit past that, because up here is full hot, and it's actually pretty warm right now. So I think I'm going to get it just a little bit more somewhere in the middle of these two, because I think when I start it tomorrow, it's going to pull some of this fluid down. So I don't want to have this thing go empty on me. So let me get just a little bit more in. And that's about good. That'll work. All right, well, that's pretty much everything. Got a little cleanup to do. That catch can was all the way to the top. So luckily for me, I got most of that stuff that was inside the block. So that's it. It's pretty much everything. So now the system is flushed out. Brand new coolant inside. Overflow is topped off, and now we just monitor for the next couple of days. It's not that big a deal. In the morning, first time I get in the car to go somewhere, just pop the hood, pop off that radiator cap. If it's low at all, top it off, put it back on, run it. And what you want is the day you come out, and it probably won't be more than 1 or 2 days, you come out and take it off and it's already full, or even a little bit dribbles out, then you know you're golden. Put it back on, make sure that is right at your full cold line. Good to go. All right, well, again, this is Hutch from Hutch Builds. Should I call this something like Hutch How To or something? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Probably by the time I post this, I'll have worked out what kind of title or something I want to use for it. Anyway, this is me, flush the coolant system. This is how we used to do it back in the day. And that's how I still do it now. So, you know, take it for what it is. But anyway, again, appreciate you guys being here. Hope to do more of these. I hope you guys come back and check things out. So this is Hutch from Hutch Builds. Appreciate you being here. Have a good one.